Hi, and welcome back to Wondering Wild. Today is Misunderstood Monday, and we're going to talk all about taxonomy. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about taxonomy, and basically how it is we classify animals into groups. And before we've talked about binomial nomenclature, which was created by Carl Linnaeus. Now, this is basically just an expansion on that system. Binomial nomenclature refers to the scientific names we give animals, which comes in two parts. And the first part of that name is called the genus, and the second part is called the specific epithet. Now, there's a lot more to classification than those two little words. It actually goes back all the way to kingdom, or in some cases, domain. So today, because it's a little confusing, I thought we'd kind of talk about taxonomy and how we use it to classify our living organisms, because it doesn't just classify animals, it also classifies plants and fungi and things of the like. So that's what we're going to talk about today. I hope you enjoy it. I hope it clears up some confusion, and let's get started. Okay, so the way we use our classification system is to narrow things down. So we start with very large groups, and then we narrow them down more and more until we get to a species. And when you get to a species, basically it means that that animal cannot reproduce with any other species and create viable offspring. So when you have a species like a cheetah, it cannot reproduce with, say, a tiger and create an animal that can have its own young. That's how you know it's a species. So you may be thinking, well, what about dogs? My golden retriever can breed with a poodle, and we can get a golden doodle. Well, it's a little different. Dog breeds are actually a kind of subspecies, so to say, of dog. In all reality, it's even a subspecies because dog itself is a subspecies of wolf. But that gets really complicated. So, when we talk about this, just know that your dog is a very complicated matter and kind of move on from there. Got it? Okay, now, within our classification system, there are 7 groups that we split them into, from general to specific. And those groups are kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, and then finally, species. Okay, so when we talk about classification, I like to use the example of a grocery store. So say you want Fruit Loops, and you don't want just any Fruit Loops from the grocery store. You want those weird Fruit Loops that also have marshmallows in them. I don't know why you want these, because to me that's awful, but maybe you do. So first you go into your grocery store. Now inside your grocery store is everything from meat to ice cream to vegetables and even drinks and things of the like. So that's kind of like life. All of life is inside this grocery store. Now, your grocery store is split into departments. You have the produce department, the meat department, the frozen foods department, and also you have your aisles, which are kind of your packaged foods. Now, these are what we would call probably kingdoms. So, the kingdoms in our classification system, there are 5 of them. Now, some people create more kingdoms and more species. They've got people that want things to be more specific and those who want them to be less specific. Those are called the clumpers and the splitters, okay? But this is our standardized classification system that we're going to talk about, so this is what you're going to hear about most often. Now, recently they've added on an even bigger group called domain, but we're not going to talk about that here because it's not widely accepted. So if you ever hear about domain, just know that it's a step above kingdom. Now, back to our grocery store example. So all of these departments, these are what you would call your kingdoms. We have 5 kingdoms. Those kingdoms are animals, plants, fungi, protists, and prokaryotes. Now, the 2 kingdoms, protists and prokaryotes, those are single-celled organisms. So we don't really talk about those today because I don't ever really talk about single-celled organisms. You've probably heard me say that before. But that's what those two are. And then the other three are pretty self-explanatory. You have your animals, your plants, and your fungi. Now, once you get into each of those groups or departments in your grocery store, you're going to narrow it down even further. So, okay, say kingdom animal, or the kingdom you're looking for to find your Fruit Loops, are the aisles of packaged materials in your grocery store. Now, each one of those aisles has a certain group of things on it. So you have your soup aisle and your candy aisle and your cereal aisle. So that's going to be kind of like your phylums. So phylums split things into even more specific groups. One of the main phylums is called Chordata. So that's going to be your animals that have a spinal cord. There are also other phyla like Mollusca and Arthropoda, so your mollusks and your arthropods. But Chordata is one that we talk about the most because most of your larger animals, the things that you think of as like furry and orm, those are going to be in the phylum Chordata. So now you're on the cereal aisle. But there are so many kinds of cereal. So next, you kind of split it by brand, right? Your grocery store splits it by like Kellogg's, General Mills, and so forth. So those brands are going to be kind of like your class. So class can split your animals even further. And so inside the phyla Chordata, we have class. And this is something actually very important because that's where you split things into mammals, reptiles, and so forth. So let's talk about class for a minute. So as far as class goes, there's 4 or 5 depending on who you ask, because one of our classes, reptile, can sometimes be combined with another called bird. So birds technically are reptiles. They're just a specific type. So some classification systems group them together. I'm going to separate them out and we're going to talk about what makes them unique in this video. So your 5 classes are mammals, reptiles, birds, amphibian, and fish. So let's real quickly talk about what makes those things unique. So first, mammals do 4 things. They give birth to live young, they have fur or hair, they are warm-blooded, and the young drink the mother's milk. Next, we have reptiles. Reptiles also do 4 things. 1, they have scales. 2, they have dry skin, not wet. 3, they usually lay eggs, though some do give birth to live young. And 4, they're cold-blooded. Next, we have birds. Birds have 3 things. 1, they lay eggs. 2, they're warm-blooded. And 3, they have feathers. Our 4th group is amphibians. And amphibians have 5 things. They live on land and water. They lay eggs. They have wet skin. They're cold-blooded. And they have webbed feet. And finally, we have fish. Fish have 4 things. One of them is a little controversial, but we're going to conclude it here. 1, they breathe underwater using gills. 2, they have scales and fins. 3, they lay eggs. And 4, they're cold-blooded. So those are your classes. So now you look at brands of cereal. So we find the brand of cereal, Fruit Loops, which I don't know off the top of my head. So now we have different kinds of Fruit Loops. So these are where your even more specific groups come into play, like order, family, genus, and species. So now you found your Fruit Loops with the marshmallows in them, and that is a species. So when we classify animals, we basically go from really broad to really specific, and this helps us to kind of see how different animals are connected, and it also allows us to say, hey, these 2 animals look alike, but they're really different, and that's why they have a different scientific name. And those are just some of the rules of science that keep us more organized and allow us to understand each other's work so that we don't get confused across countries and parts of the world. So everybody is going to use this classification system, or almost everybody. There's some disagreement, but on a whole, if you're talking about a kingdom, we know what level of specificity you're using. So that's why we use classification systems, and it allows us to separate the large cats from the small cats, the monkeys from the apes, the fish from the amphibians, the jawed fish from the non-jawed fish. You see where I'm going? So classification is very important, and I hope that you no longer misunderstand it. But if you do have any questions, please put them in the comments down below and I'll try to answer them. As always, my sources are found in the description box below, and if you like what you saw, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any more videos. And as always, stay wild and never stop wondering.